Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to drop this week. The first guy, Jake Burger of the Chicago White Sox. Burger, he got off to a hot start the first 6 weeks of the season, especially with the home runs on the season. 10 homers, 24 RBIs, 18 runs scored, a stolen base, a 250 average, and a 298 on base. But over the last month now, he's really slowed down. 3 homers, 11 RBIs, a stolen base, a 242 average, and a 250 on base. So obviously, he's not walking a lot. It's either a hit or that's it. He's not going to get on base any other way. He's not really going to score runs, and he's relying way too much, is Jake Burger, on the home run ball. We know a lot of power hitters do strike out a lot, but they also walk a lot as well, and Burger's not bringing that for fantasy owners. And like I said, the numbers have gone down over the last month after he got off to a hot start with 7 home runs in his first 60 at-bats. So the last few games for Burger: May 23rd at the Guardians, 0 for 5. May 24th at the Guardians, 0 for 3. May 25th at the Tigers, 1 for 3 with a run and a stolen base. May 26th at the Tigers, 2 for 5 with 2 runs. May 27th at the Tigers, 0 for 3 with a run. May 28th at the Tigers, 1 for 5. And May 29th, he sat out that ball game versus the Los Angeles Angels. So right now, if he's not hitting a home run or driving in runs, he's not really bringing much for fantasy owners, is Burger. And we know this White Sox offense is a pretty struggling offense most nights than not, besides Luis Robert really having a great season. So right now, while Burger hasn't done much, and he's been dropped in the lineup over the last week, where he was batting some games second, now either 6th or 7th, and even missing that ball game yesterday versus the Angels. He's a hitter I would drop now. No doubt he can get his power back, obviously, Burger, and go on a hot streak, because we know power hitters are streaky, but Burger don't have that big track record like most power hitters, where he's a 30 home run hitter. So right now, while he hasn't done much, is Jake Burger over the last couple weeks, and even the last month, really. He's a hitter I would drop this week. The next hitter I look to drop this week's Brent Rooker of the Oakland Athletics. So Rooker came out of the gates hot in the first month, 5 weeks of the season, but now he's really slowed down for this Oakland Athletic team on the season. 11 home runs, which is still a great number. 32 RBIs, 23 runs scored, a stolen base, a 261 average, and a 364 on base. So the numbers obviously look good on the surface and as a total on the season, but the last 2 weeks here for Rooker, no homers, 3 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 146 average, and a 212 on base. And he's another hitter that don't really have a track record as a big-time power hitter. So right now, he's up to about 80% owned at one time a few weeks ago, and now his ownerage just dropped to only 58% owned. And keep things going here is Rooker. He's not going to have much fantasy value, and right now, he is droppable in my opinion. He sat out the last 2 out of 6 games for this Oakland A team. May 24th at the Mariners, pinch hit 1 for 1. May 25th at the Mariners, 0 for 4. May 26th versus the Astros, 1 for 4 with a run. May 27th versus Houston, 1 for 4 with a run. And May 28th versus Houston, 0 for 4. So he's in a big-time slump right now, is Brent Rooker. He's not showing power. He's not even getting on base at all. And like I said, over the last couple weeks here, he's been way below the Mendoza line, pretty much, is Rooker. Only hitting 146, so that's not going to produce for fantasy owners. And he's a strikeout as well. A lot of strikeouts, 19 Ks in 48 at-bats in the last 2 weeks. So right now, after Rooker got off to a nice start and was one of the better hitters in fantasy baseball, he's an easy drop this week. The next guy is Jorge Mateo of the Baltimore Orioles. So Jorge Mateo, he got off to the roaring start, and we know he's a stolen base specialist, where last season he stole 35 stolen bases, and this year he'll probably steal 40, 45 stolen bases as Mateo, but he can't get on base right now. He can't hit a lick, and he's easy to drop. This year, 6 home runs, 22 RBIs, 15 stolen bases, 28 runs scored, a 231 average, and a 280 on base. So compared to last season, the numbers are on par. He was a 221 hitter and a 267 on base. So his numbers definitely could be similar to what they were last season, is Jorge Mateo. But over the last couple weeks, he's been non-existent for fantasy owners. No homers, 2 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 135 average, and a 195 on base. So right now, he's not producing as Mateo. But he definitely could turn things around and go the other way, where he could have fantasy value once again for owners. But right now, well, he hasn't done much, is Jorge Mateo, and he's not producing. If he's not getting on base, he's not going to give his specialty, obviously, in stealing bases. So right now, he's a hitter I would drop. The last few games for Mateo: May 25th at the Yankees, 0 for 4. May 26th versus the Rangers, 0 for 3. May 27th versus the Rangers, 1 for 3 with a bag. May 28th versus the Rangers, 1 for 3. May 29th versus the Guardians, 0 for 3 in that one. So right now, he pretty much hasn't done anything with only 2 hits in the last 6 games here for Jorge Mateo. And like I said, if he's not getting on base, he's not really going to bring value where his specialty is scoring runs and stealing bases. So right now, well, he's been struggling the last month of the season. He's a hitter I would drop this week. The next hitter is Taylor Ward of the Los Angeles Angels. So Taylor Ward was on the list last week and he remains on it this week. Still owned in 53% of fantasy leagues. And after last season was a breakout type of year for Ward with 23 home runs and 65 RBIs. This season, he hasn't done much. 4 homers, 17 RBIs. 28 runs scored, a stolen base, a .220 average, and a .295 on base. And over the last 2 weeks here, no home runs and RBI. 3 runs scored, a .139 average, and a .158 on base. He's not getting on base. He's not seeing the ball well. Obviously, swinging up there is Taylor Ward for this Los Angeles Angel team. And it's too bad. He's in the lineup with a lot of good hitters where he's got a lot of protection, but he just hasn't done much this season. In the last few games for May 23rd, versus Boston, pinched hit 1 for 1 with a run. May 24th versus Boston, 0 for 4. May 26th versus the Marlins, 1 for 5. May 27th, pinched hit versus the Marlins, 0 for 1. May 28th versus the Marlins, 0 for 3. And May 29th, sat out in that ball game at Chicago, so the playing time isn't there for Taylor Ward. Monac, we know he's getting time now in the outfield for this Los Angeles Angel team. And Taylor Ward's a droppable hitter. Yes, if there's an injury or he plays a couple times a week and starts getting hot, he can make his way back into the lineup and possibly have fantasy value. But right now, well, he's not doing any of that, is Taylor Ward. He's an easy hitter to drop this week, and the 5th and final hitter I look to drop this week here is Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox. At Duran, he got off to a hot start the first 3-4 weeks of the season, but right now he hasn't done anything and his numbers have dropped drastically. Is Duran 3 home runs on the year, 19 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 16 runs scored, a .297 average, and a .348 on base. Yes, on the surface the numbers look decent as well with the .297 average, but the last 2 weeks here, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored, a stolen base, .195 average, and a .214 on base. So he's not drawing walks. He's not working the counts. Here's Duran. And his strikeout rate is up there as well with 19 strikeouts in his last 41 at-bats in the last 2 weeks. So he's been dropped in tons of fantasy leagues, and he's in a bad slump. May 22nd at the Angels, 0 for 4. May 23rd at the Angels, 0 for 4. May 24th at the Angels, 0 for 4. May 26th, he sat out at the Diamondbacks. May 27th at the Diamondbacks, 2 for 4. May 28th at the Diamondbacks, 0 for 4. And the Red Sox, they were off yesterday. Now a 3-game series here versus the Cincinnati Reds, where he could turn things around. But right now, he's not hitting the baseball. His strikeout rate is way up here for Duran. And even on the season total, 42 Ks on the year. So if he's not getting on base and not stealing bases, obviously, what goes hand in hand together, he's not going to bring fantasy value, really. So he's a hitter I would drop this week. So that's a few hitters I look to drop here in Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season.